Hey, wir sind auf YouTube. Coole Sache.
Ist da Inception oder wie?
Ja, das war jetzt gerade wahrscheinlich ein bisschen verwirrend. Dann können wir auch die Aufzeichnung fortsetzen. Ja, warten wir noch kurz. Es kommen sicherlich noch ein paar Leute.
Ich will jetzt wissen, wie viele Leute bei YouTube live dabei sind.
Kannst gleich nachschauen, oder? Machen wir mal diese Galerie an. Ah, jetzt sehe ich auch mal alle Menschen.
Ja, 7 aktive Zuschauer. Das ist mehr als wir gerade.
Aktive Zuschauer. Das ist mehr als wir Zuschauer. Jetzt haben wir eine Rückkopplung gerade.
Ja, das ist.
Eine Rückkopplung.
Ja, ich mach's wieder aus.
Achso, weil du YouTube gleichzeitig offen hattest.
Ja.
Das ist sehr klug. Der André ist da.
Ernsthaft? Wo siehst du das?
Es ist gerade ein Ape reingekommen. Ich gehe davon aus.
Okay. Ja, so vielleicht so 5 nach, noch 2 Minuten. Ewig warten will ich jetzt auch nicht.
Nee. Ich hätte mal 5 nach gesagt.
Ja. Vielleicht hätte ich weniger Buzzwords in den Talk-Namen reinschreiben sollen, sondern eher Make your page ridiculously fast oder irgend sowas richtig Doofes.
Du hättest einfach Kubernetes reinschreiben sollen und es wären schon 1000 Leute hier.
Da freut sich schon einer.
Ja, noch. Wo DevOps sein will.
Marco wehrt sich mal wieder dagegen, die Kamera anzumachen. Haben sich aber deutlich mehr angemeldet auf Meetup. Ja.
Das Wetter wahrscheinlich, oder?
Ja, gut. Da.
Sonne, Sonne, Sonne.
Naja, wir zeichnen es auch auf und man kann es im Nachhinein noch angucken. Also, müssen mal gucken, wo wir es dann hochladen. Ich weiß gar nicht, ob das auf YouTube noch verfügbar ist danach. Keine Ahnung.
Also anscheinend hat ja, wie hat das der Robin gestern gemeint, dass es dann automatisch bei YouTube dann drin steht.
Okay, also dass man es auch im Nachhinein anschauen kann.
Mhm.
Man kann sich, ja. Ja. Mal gucken.
Jo, ich würde sagen, wir fangen jetzt einfach an, oder? Ich würde jetzt trotzdem mal Deutsch reden, weil ich glaube, hier sprechen alle Deutsch und wir sind so wenig Leute. Alex, du machst deinen Talk ja später in Englisch. Ich glaube, das ist eh das Wichtige. Okay, dann sage ich mal herzlich willkommen zu unserem ersten Angular Stuttgart Remote Meetup. Die aktuelle Situation lässt es leider nicht anders zu, dass wir mal neue Wege ausprobieren müssen. Und glücklicherweise hat der Robin Böhm von Angular Berlin uns eine Zoom-Lizenz zur Verfügung gestellt, hat uns auch das alles nochmal richtig gut erklärt, wie das Ganze hier funktioniert. Deshalb hoffe ich, dass wir das technisch ganz gut hinkriegen. Genau, wir sind auch zum allerersten Mal live auf YouTube, finde ich richtig cool, was wir da jetzt für technische Möglichkeiten haben. Und ja, schauen wir einfach mal, wie es wird. Es ist mein erstes Mal, dass ich Zoom so richtig benutze. Ich versuche das hier irgendwie alles zu managen. Ich kann nicht versprechen, dass alles reibungslos funktioniert. Wir werden es aber sehen. Genau, versucht euch alle immer zu muten, während zum Beispiel der Alex dann nachher seinen Talk machen wird. Ansonsten Genau. Wir schauen jetzt einfach mal, wie es läuft. Genau, ich mache mal hier, wenn ich es schaffe. Unsere Standardfolie, die wir eigentlich immer drin haben und diesmal wieder mit was Erfreulichem. Wir haben die nächste Marke geknackt. Wir haben mittlerweile 602 Mitglieder und finde ich ziemlich cool, dass trotz der Zeit gerade wir immer noch Zulauf haben und auf jeden Fall eine schöne Entwicklung, dass wir weiter wachsen. Natürlich mache ich auch diesmal wieder Werbung für unsere Homepage, wie jedes Mal, aber vielleicht hat es der eine oder andere immer noch nicht mitgekriegt. Auf ng-stuttgart.de habt ihr die Möglichkeit, alle Talks und die Folien im Nachhinein euch noch anzuschauen. Und auch sonst, da ist unser GitHub verlinkt, da findet man irgendwie ein paar Ressourcen, ein paar Codebeispiele aus unseren Talks etc. Genau, es ist natürlich eine Angular-App, die Anwendung, und ja, geht auf jeden Fall mal drauf, schaut es euch an. Dann kommen wir zu unserer heutigen Agenda. Wie ich ja bereits schon gesagt habe, der Alex wird einen Talk halten, da geht es um Angular im Zusammenspiel mit dem Jamstack. Wird der Alex dann auch erklären, was das ist, und zeigt das mit Scully. Genau, und danach möchten wir mal so ein Zoom-Feature ausprobieren. Ich weiß noch nicht, wie gut es funktionieren wird, aber das nennt sich Breakout-Sessions. Die Frage ist, ob wir es wirklich brauchen, je nachdem, wie viele Leute wir nachher auf Zoom sind. Da hat man die Möglichkeit, unsere große Gruppe quasi in so kleinere Unterräume aufzuteilen, damit man einfach ein bisschen angenehmer reden kann, irgendwie zusammen Bier trinken. Weil das Wichtige bei so einem Meetup ist ja auch immer irgendwie, dass man mit den Leuten redet und sich nicht nur den Talk anschaut, sondern meistens geht es ja auch wirklich darum, mit Leuten zu reden, in Kontakt zu kommen, sich ein bisschen auszutauschen, und das versuchen wir mal, ob wir das mit diesen Breakout-Sessions von Zoom hinkriegen. Genau. Dann würde ich jetzt gar nicht lang quatschen und würde dann einfach direkt an den Alex übergeben, damit er seinen Talk machen kann.
All right. I'm sharing my screen now, and I will start English directly. Okay, I hope you see my screen. And I will start my presentation. I'm still ridiculously nervous, so I'm sorry if I forget stuff. And sorry about the beard as well. I hope I didn't scare anybody away. But we have to bear through that. So let's start. I want to talk to you about the Jamstack and specifically Scully, which pretty much implements the Jamstack, but more about that later. So okay, what's my agenda today? First, I will need to establish some terminology. So what's the Jamstack? What is client-side rendering, server-side rendering, pre-rendering? What's the difference? And what is Scully? Then some live session where I want to build a very simple block from scratch using Scully. And then some more advantages, some features, and compare it to Universal. First, about myself. I'm a software engineer at Allianz. I focus on front-end development, and I like CSS, which seems kind of rare, so I'm mentioning it. And I co-organized the Angular Meetup Stuttgart. There's my Twitter handle, and let's start. So what is the Jamstack? Well, Jam is an acronym and stands for JavaScript API Markdown, or more concretely, client-side rendered JavaScript, reusable APIs, and pre-built markup. I put a quote there, which I find quite good. But, well, the first time I saw that definition and what Jamstack, I didn't get anything. So what does that mean? And then it turns out that all three of those, JavaScript is optional. You don't really need JavaScript to implement the Jamstack. You don't need APIs. It's for additional features. And don't need markup either, which is for content that you render into HTML. So everything is optional. So what kind of acronym is that? And indeed, many people say that the acronym is horrible. So what's it really? That's pretty hard to define, actually. The one thing that all definitions have in common is that it doesn't rely on a web server. So in some sense, it's kind of the opposite of the server-side rendered app. So it's something, it was pretty much created by Netlify. And then the main point is that you can serve it via a CDN and you don't need a web server. And then there's this the simplified developer experience. You don't have to manage the server. You don't have to think about, missing the word, about things involving the server. And well, it usually results in very fast pages, in secure pages, because all the user ever gets is HTML, and for the same reason, better SEO. And then there are optional features like you can use headless CMS instead of WordPress traditionally. You can use the headless version of services like that, where you don't have, you just use the APIs for the contents. Okay. And there's a link that I want to show you when talking about this. There's a really good link. I also have it in the resource section. Specifically the services part here. There are a lot of APIs here which are really handy. So you can have your Jamstack app, which we're going to build. And then you need some additional APIs, but you don't have a server. So what do you do? So you look on the site, and there are a lot of features. Maybe you don't need a server. You can build everything with a static app, and every dynamical part, you use these services. All right, this is the Stuttgart site. I also have the GitHub repo here. So if you look into archive, you see the slides here as well. They're already uploaded, and then you have the GitHub repo. And there's the start branch there. So for a live session, you can check this out already and go into the start branch and then follow along if you want. So I will close this now. And mandatory, I also need to mention HTTP 203. There's a nice video about the Jamstack. Enough about that. So let me talk about the different rendering things. So client-side rendering, server-side rendering, pre-rendering. So client-side rendering is what the default, what the Angular app does per default. You get an index HTML, which just calls a lot of JavaScript files, and then the browser calls the JavaScript files, and JavaScript files, they have constructions how to put the DOM together, and then you render that. So there's a lot of JavaScript involved and a lot of thing the browser has to do. Then server-side rendering is kind of similar. You still have the same app, but all the things that the browser did before, or many of the things the server does now. So in the example of Angular Universal, that's what Node does. So the all the code that we write in that is run in a Node.js environment. And then there's pre-rendering, where during build time, you build all of your HTML. So you don't have any server at all. You create all your HTML files usually for each route during build time, and then you just deliver the HTML files. So we'll see this in example. Now, what is Scully? So now we already established Jamstack and static and pre-rendering. Now, Scully is a static site generator, which just means it pre-renders stuff. And it implements the Jamstack, so it gets all the advantages, really fast pages. So all the browser sees is just one HTML file, and it can pretty much can't get much faster than that. An interesting part here is that JavaScript is optional. So that might sound curious at first, because well, we have an Angular app, everything is in JavaScript, and at least in the background. But it just renders HTML. So in the end, you can disable JavaScript and you will have a working app. And ease of use is really important here. Oh, sorry. Because you will see later, you just pretty much have one schematic, and then you already have your pre-rendered app with Angular, which wasn't available before, which was possible before. Also interesting about this is that like React had Gatsby, for example, and Vue had another solution for 1 or 2 years, I think. And Angular was pretty much left out. In fact, many people switched to Gatsby to React because they were missing this piece, or even wrote vanilla JavaScript in some cases. So let me describe one scenario. Maybe you can understand better what I mean. Let's imagine you want to build your personal website, which probably has just some routes and static text. So you don't really have much functionality there. But you really like Angular, right? So it has a lot of features. It enables you to write bundle code. It has all this modularity aspects, modularized code, like ngIf, ngFor. Those are things are handy. You route everything else, the auto prefixer, auto to box, a lot of features that you like to use. But, well, you only have this static app, and you could just write vanilla JavaScript, but you also want to use the Angular features. Well, there was no way around that, and there is now with Scully. With Scully pretty much tell you, any Angular app you write, you also install some Scully dependencies, and then you tell it just to pre-render it pretty much, and you have your static site. Okay, and of course, the dynamic part will per default be called as well and swapped out in the background. So you have this really fast app, but you also have the JavaScript rendered after that, all the functionality that comes with it. And you also have some useful schematics. Then let's get straight into the live part. We will just build that. So we'll start with this part right here. And then let's go into IntelliJ. So what I did here is create a Scully starter app. So engineer Scully starter, and then open this in IntelliJ, and that's all I did. And if you want, you can check out this repo and go into the start branch, and then you have the same code as me, and we can go with this together. Okay, so what do we do first? We need to install Scully. So we do this. So this is probably what takes the longest during this live coding. We have to wait for some packages to install. Then we will see what happened. Okay. Yeah, I did this like 5 times to test, and this never happened before. Let's try it again. Okay, it looks like it worked now. Sorry about that. So what happened here? It created, in the root level, it created this Scully config file, which doesn't really do that much. It just tells it where to install the pre-rendered files. And then let's check the diff. So there's the Scully lib module that's imported. Then we have the script, and then we have these 3 Scully IO dependencies. And a polyfill for Zone.js, so Scully knows when all HTML requests are outgoing requests are out and things like that, so it can build it more efficiently. Okay, so let's just go ahead and build. And now run Scully. So all I did here is run the schematic, install Scully, and now we build. And then as a post build step, we run the Scully command. So we'll see in a second what happened here. So I'm waiting for the dist folder to appear. It's really slow for some reason. I don't know really why. Okay, now the build step is complete, and now Scully is being run. It tries to detect the routes. Wasn't there just one? Oh, yeah, there it is. So this is the normal build folder, the normal build files, and then you also have this static thing, and it created, well, the index HTML is different because it has all the whole app is there. So this is what the Angular CLI does when you do engineer the new app. So let's see this in action. Which doesn't work yet. I need to run it. Well, I could do an HTTP server in that static folder, but it already comes with its functionality. Does that for me? All right, now I have server running here. And let's see if this worked. So I disable JavaScript and I hard refresh. And you can see in the network tab here that all downloaded was that HTML file and nothing else, some image files, and no JavaScript at all. And you still have the whole app here working. And I think that alone is pretty amazing. So you just install one dependency and tell it to run this, to generate the static files. And well, you just turned your normal Angular app into a static version of it. Okay, so next step. Well, I said I wanted to build a blog, so let's keep going. I think this alone is already enough for starting. But since we have a Scully talk here, let's go deeper. What else can we do with this? So this schematic creates a lazy-loaded module for a block and sets up the route and also sets up, yes, this folder with a README file. Let me just change this. Okay, so this isn't, let's change to this, so it's better readable. So now you have this README file with some metadata here, which you can use later in the application as well. And here you just can write your blog, maybe your blog. So this is some text. And well, for fun, let's add another README file. Okay, Scully is amazing. And press enter, and that's it. So now we have this file and try it out. Okay, so what else did the schematic do? It created this block folder, which is lazy loaded, and yes, and let's see here. Now you have this Scully content, and this is where the README, the content from the README files is rendered into. So we don't need all of these things. Let's just do an H1, some title. And well, now I just build some stuff around it because now this isn't the working app yet. So let's just create another home lazy loaded module. So this takes way longer than usual. The module called home with the route home and what was it? Module. So to set up the lazy routing immediately. So this just runs the schematic. All right, so now we also have this lazy loaded home module with the component. Okay, so what we want to do now, I'm sure you know, let's delete all this generated stuff. And we need some links so we can access things. So router link and home, blog, and put some router outlet here. One thing that we just need to adjust right here, because I generate this, it used the home route, but I just want to take the root route for home. Okay, and then one more thing we want to do, because what happens here, let's go here. So both of these go to block component. So what happens here is we have this block route, which gets into block component. And then all of these, that's what Scully does in the background, little magic, is it creates a sub-route of block. So block slash the name of this file is another route. So you have the route block slash Scully is amazing and block slash 2020, the date what you see there. And it configures that with this. But I don't like the setup very much. So I will create another thing, another component here, like block entry, for example. just flat into there. Okay. And then say block entry component and root route there. Okay, where's the block entry? Let's go here. So the Scully content goes into here now. So each block entry has its own content. And here we need a router outlet. And we also need some links to access the code, to add the pages that we have. So router link. But now we have a problem, because where do we get the routes? Now, I could write this by hand, all of them. Well, that would suck. I don't want to do that. So this is another way. Go into this component here, and then inject the Scully route service. There it is. Okay. And get all the routes from there. I'll just get rid of this engine. Oops, this. So let's create an observable of routes. There's also an interface here, Scully routes. Okay. And say Scully route service and get the available routes. So now we have the routes here, and all we need to do now is ng4 over it. I'll subscribe with the async pipe. And now we have the route. And thing is, all this metadata here is also available here. So I can just do route title and route description. Okay. Now this should work already. Yes. Did I do something wrong here? Oh yeah, I forgot. This obviously is an array, so I can ng4 over it. Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, the build takes way longer than it did before. I'm sorry about that. Maybe I'll just try to say some things while we're waiting. Oh yeah, that's one thing I wanted to show you as well. And of course, I think that's just the thing I just changed. Let's do it again. Okay, so let's see here. When I did the Scully init block schematic, it also added this part here. It wasn't there initially. So what happens here is the following. You need to teach Scully which routes do you have. So all the basic routes where you use router module and have router links and everything, it can read from your code. But here, like this, well, usually it's an ID, it's called slug here. Scully has no way of knowing which IDs, how many blog posts you have there. So this is called a plugin or a router plugin in this case. And you just tell it, look, inside a content, inside a folder, and in this one. So what it does, it checks this folder here, and it gets the slug or the ID from these file names. So then it knows, okay, I have to pre-render these routes. So let's see if this worked. So what do you do here? Let's make this a little bigger. Okay, so route, empty route, rendered route from this one, then yeah, that one, and also the /block route. So something I forgot. Okay, so I'm not really sure what this does. If published isn't true, then it does that for some reason. And then it won't work so well. So now we only need to rerun Scully. Okay. Done. Let's serve it again and see what we got. Okay. So I didn't really write CSS here, so it looks ugly, of course, but let's check the functionality. JavaScript is still disabled here. So we have these two links here, homeworks. Then we have the block route with the title, h1, and those two. And so let's go back. Maybe that needs to be a back button. Press here. And we have the content from the markdowns. So it works. Now we have pretty much have the basis for a block using Scully and pre-rendered, which makes this ridiculously fast. Let's just try something. Well, this is everything already, but let's just enable JavaScript anyway. And now it gets the HTML first and renders very fast. And then it also downloads the dynamic part and swaps it in the background, similar to what Universal does. So you get pretty much the best of both worlds. So just one more additional functionality here, what you can do, just some additional stuff this guy can do. Let's say you have some dynamic parts in your app, well, where you need JavaScript. That's no problem. Right? You can just, well, do it like we did here, and it probably will work. But there might be some cases where the pre-rendered stuff here will leave you until the Angular stuff has been loaded as well. So there will be a time frame where you have a different app which doesn't work for some parts, and there might be some parts of your app where it doesn't work like you want it to. So what you can do is handle that manually in those cases. Like for default, instead of I don't know, a shopping cart where you need some functionality behind it, which isn't there at first, then you just you put there, you render a static picture there instead. That might be an easy idea. So let's show a very easy example of this. Okay, some basic Angular. So now we have this default title, and we have this special fancy title. Great. So what is show title? So what we want to do is, well, if Scully is rendered, then, or if you're in the Scully part pretty much, then show the default title, otherwise show this one. So there's a handy little function that we can use here, which is Scully running? And we want to show the title if Scully is not running. Yes, and that's it already. So we have to do this. So this shows one disadvantage of Scully. There is right now, there is no real watch mode. So what I do if when I developed with Scully, I used the normal serve. For all the other parts, they don't really involve Scully. And for for the Scully things, well, it just takes a little longer, because in Scully, the build step takes a long time. It's usually faster than that. My computer's really slow now. But it's the heaviest part. It's different from when you use Angular normally. So here we have to go through that. And the idea of Scully also is that you always build everything. So when you change something, anything, you build everything from scratch, and then you pre-render it. That might cause some scaling issues. If you have a really big app, in those cases, like Universal might be better, but I think that threshold is pretty far. Okay. So this again. Okay. Okay, so what do we see here? Well, this was fast. There's some caching involved. So what I will do here is copy this, and when I press enter, you will see a default title, and then it will swap into the special title really fast. Yes. So it worked. So pre-rendered version, you have this, you can adjust what it's rendered first, and then you have the dynamic part afterwards. So those were some functionalities that I wanted to show you. So what I also did, I just wanted to mention it really shortly because I haven't really used this for a long time. I pushed the repository that I also showed you before to GitHub, and then I just created this like 10 minutes before the talk, a Netlify account. And I just created this account and then said, I want to connect this, what was it called, Scully starter repository to my Netlify account. Pressed OK. So I just pressed like 3 times OK. And then it deployed for like a few minutes. And well, that's the app that is already hosted live. That was amazingly easy. And apparently they're using really fast CDNs. So I can definitely recommend Netlify. Check it out. Okay, that was the live part. These were the schematics I used. Let's just get over some things. Most of them we already saw. There's the plugin system with Scully, like teaching Scully where to find routes. You can also, if you're using an API, you can also put an API call there. And then Scully will call that API and get whatever you specify as ID and take those IDs from it. That works as well. You can also, there's also render plugins, and there's also already a lot of plugins that the community wrote that you can already use. So there's already a quite large community that that builds plugins and things. And then there's the Gitter.io for Scully, which is really active. So if you want to get involved, you can look there, and then you will probably get an answer. Two specific plugins that I want to mention is one that that minifies all the HTML. So you can just plug that in, it's pretty easy. And also one that disables JavaScript completely. So you can pretty much remove all the Angular framework completely and just use it for your developer convenience, because you like the way how you write Angular app. And we saw the Scully route service, where you get all the routes dynamically and ng4 over them. Then is Scully running this handy little function where you can see if you're in the pre-render mode or in the swapped out dynamic Angular mode. And also, there's also a transfer state. If you're familiar with Angular Universal, you might know that that's a similar concept. One thing that the transfer state enables you to do, which is quite nice, I'd say, is if you have a resource over HTTP, then which you can call ahead of time, which makes sense in your app, then you can just take the transfer state and put your HTTP call in its callback, which is a function pretty much. And what it does is it calls that API during build time. So there will be no HTTP call during in your production build anymore. Production code. It will pre-render everything there. Okay. Some more things just to wrap up. Why Scully? Well, it's just, I mentioned this before, but I think it's really important. It's what differentiates Scully from, I think, any other Jamstack solution these days. It's easy to use. So we just saw it. You just run one schematic, and you don't have to write your Angular app in a specific way. You just write your standard, normal Angular app, and then you say, okay, now I want to pre-render it, and it will most likely work. But you need Angular at least version 8. It's been made by a team called Hero Devs, and it's been produced in close collaboration with the Angular team. So it won't go anywhere. So, and there's also the thing that if you're wondering, because the Angular Universal, since Angular 9 also has a pre-rendering possibility. But then you might think that, well, how do I say this? Well, the first, when I saw this, the first, well, Universal has pre-rendering as well, and it comes directly from the Angular team. So why would I use Scully anymore? But keep in mind that Scully was built from the start in close collaboration with the Angular team. So there's definitely a role for Scully. And I say a few words about that in a second. And then Scully runs with Puppeteer and not Node.js, which makes it more versatile, and also enables an expansion to React, Vue, and even AngularJS apps, which is planned in the near future. Scully is in beta though. I think you can already use it. There are already a lot of production apps that use it, but it's not officially stable released yet. And it's made for pre-rendering mind. And I would say that, well, Universal is for server-side rendering primarily, and these days there's a pre-rendering option as well, but well, it's kind of like an afterthought. We also have that option, but it's not built for that. And I think the main point here is that you can just take any Angular app and run and use Angular Universal on it. It's kind of a flavor of Angular. You have to build the app with Angular with Universal in mind, because the app doesn't run in the browser. It has to be able to run in Node.js environment. So it doesn't have access to the browser APIs. Well, some people have been preaching that for years, that you have to do that, so otherwise you won't be able to use Universal. But well, that also applies to all libraries you use. So if there's a library that wasn't built with Universal in mind, then you can use that library. So that's definitely a kickback for Universal. And it's much harder to get into. Scully is really easy. And quite kind of similar with Gatsby. Okay. So here I involved most of the resources that I want to share with you. And that was it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Really great talk. Thank you. Has anybody any questions? So please write them in the chat first, or do some reaction on Zoom, like raising your hands with the thumbs up icon or something like this that we can see, and then I will unmute you, and then you can ask your question if there are any. Okay.
Yeah, you talked about the difference to the pre-rendering in the Angular Universal. And I think another difference here is the inclusion of the markdown file. So is it possible with the pre-rendering of Universal too?
Not that I'm aware of. Also, the plugin system is unique to Scully. And that's kind of what I meant with, I should have said some more words about it, you're right. So that's kind of what I meant about with this one. Scully was made with pre-rendering in mind, so that's the whole use case. So there's the plugin system that's really handy. There's a rendering, they can write rendering plugins where you can say, well, I don't want inline CSS, I want an extra CSS file. You can do a lot of stuff, which I don't think is supported yet by Universal. And I'm not sure they will support it that far.
Okay, so it's like an ecosystem on top of the pre-rendering.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? More questions?
I would have another, if it's okay.
Sure, no problem.
In the markdown files, is it possible to do something like MDX or so that I can integrate some logic and dynamic stuff into the markdown files?
That is a good question. I have no idea. But now I want to know. Well, I'm writing this down. I didn't even know there's something like MDX. I have to Google that.
Yeah, it's like JSX in markdown files.
Okay. I might be writing a blog post about this talk very soon and put it. Well, I will advertise it. You can find it there. So I might get into this, but don't expect it too soon.
Is your blog already existing? So then you can show us and do some advertisements?
I don't really want to show it because the post isn't finished.
Okay, so then we will share it in the community via Twitter and Meetup when it's finished.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
One more. Do you think it's a good idea to create a login page or something like this with Scully? To speed the loading times up, or?
I'm not sure. I think if there's a lot of dynamic involved, then maybe it's not the best idea to use Scully. So it doesn't apply for all use cases. But I'm not really sure about that. So maybe just for the login page, it can also already be nice to have it pre-rendered. I don't have much more inside info about that, how you would do that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any more questions? So otherwise, I would say we will now stop the YouTube live stream and go to the a little bit more relaxed part and open the breakout sessions. And then, of course, if everybody in your room understands German, it's no problem to speak German, of course. And we will try it out and hopefully it works fine. So for all the people on YouTube, thanks for watching and see you next time. Goodbye.